Awesome. Let me share my screen for you all. Get that all set. Awesome. Okay. I think we should be good there. Pop it in the chat if you guys cannot see my screen and the slide deck right now. But I want to say thank you, Melanie, so much for having me present to your community tonight. And good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to come listen and learn about screens and young children and the Center for Excellence on Social Media and Youth Mental Health. And we have this 5 C's framework that we've created through the center. So I'm really excited to talk to you all tonight. Just a bit of a background into who I am. I'm Erica Williams. I am a research specialist at the University of Michigan and the American Academy of Pediatrics Center of Excellence on Social Media and Youth Mental Health. I received my master's from Michigan State University, where I focused on early childhood, translating research, and creating resources for families like you. So I'm really excited to talk to you guys tonight. Before we begin, I'm not sure if you've heard of the Center of Excellence yet, but I do want to give you a bit of a background into who we are and what we do. So at the Center of Excellence was established through HHS and SAMHSA in 2022 to serve as a centralized, trusted source of evidence and support for parents like you all, teens themselves, pediatricians, teachers, and other educators, and other professionals who work with youth and families. At the center, we have two medical directors who guide us in everything we do. We have Dr. Megan Moreno, who is at the University of Wisconsin, and Dr. Jenny Radesky, who is here with me at the University of Michigan. Both bring an expertise in digital media use and how it impacts child development. And at the center, you might not be familiar with our approach, or it might look a little bit different from what you're used to seeing maybe in media or news outlets, but we have 5 key points to our approach that we take here at the center. Our first point is that we center on the child and the adolescent. This is where we make sure to keep the child at the center of the conversation and help them have a say in what happens and ask them how they feel about their technology and social media use. At the center, we're lucky enough to have a youth advisory panel that's made up of our youngest children who are on it are 14 years old, and it goes all the way up to like 18, 19, the early college, like freshmen in college. And so we're really lucky to have them to guide us in all the guidance we give and the resources that we create. Our next point in our approach is the developmental lens. This is where we create resources that match the way kids grow and develop. And so we're really lucky at the center. We get to cover how technology impacts infants all the way up to young adults. And we create resources that match the way kids develop. Third is the importance of context. This is where we support families by meeting them where they are and understanding their unique situations. We address topics like parent technology use, the parent and child relationship challenges, and we also help and encourage other community opportunities. The next one is individual differences. This is where we adjust our work to fit the unique strengths and needs of each child and their family. We know that this is not a one-size-fits-all approach, and every child is unique in their own amazing way. And so we can't take that one-size-fits-all approach to this. We have to make sure our work is fitting each child and the family uniquely. And lastly is the digital ecosystem design, and this is where we speak up for changes in policy and law to help keep kids safe online. So before I get into the bulk of our presentation today, I first want to address why technology and social media can sometimes feel overwhelming to manage in our homes and with our children. At the center, we hear from a lot of families that they say technology in their home is out of control, it feels overwhelming, or they feel like they can't talk to other people about it out of, fear of judgment. Or they've talked about how they know that tech use goes on too long in their home, but they don't know where to start to fix it. So at the center, we want to normalize the fact that lots of families are feeling like technology is out of control or it's overwhelming, and really normalize the fact that raising small humans is really hard. We want to help lower the shame and the guilt that parents may feel by discussing why tech can feel this way, because it's not the parent's fault. We'll go through many reasons today why technology can feel overwhelming and hopefully normalize the fact that if you feel overwhelmed by this topic, it is totally normal and you are not alone in that. So it's also important to point out that every family and every child is different, and there's not a one size fits all approach to managing tech in the home that works for all families across the board. There are so many ways to do this right for your family, and we'll go over lots of practical tips and strategies that you can input into your household and your family. So the first reason that we're seeing why managing tech in the home can feel overwhelming, and a big reason why we wanted to create the Center of Excellence, is because of this popular narrative that we see in media and news outlets. This narrative showcases social media, smartphones, and technology in a fearful way. So you'll see in these images that social media and smartphones are portrayed as destroying a generation, they're toxic, or they destroy the world. And what we've seen is that these dramatic, scary messages don't reflect the science and the research that's out there, and that this type of messaging can create feelings of hopelessness, shame, blame, or an inability to make a change in one's life, especially in parents. So we want to change the way we talk about this because we've seen how this type of scary, fear-based narrative can make people feel. And instead, we want to focus on creating practical, real-life, strength-based solutions that you all can use, and we'll go into a lot of those today. Another reason why technology can feel overwhelming is because of how fast the digital world moves today. So if you look at the left side of the screen, the radio took 38 years to reach 50 million global users, and the TV took 14 years. When I think about that, that tells me that families had time to adjust and figure out how those things fit into their home. They had time to figure out what room do we listen to the radio? When do we listen to the radio? What radio channel do we listen to? Same with the TV. What TV channel? Where is the TV in our home? And when are we watching TV? They had years to figure out how that fits in the context of their home and their family. Whereas if you go to the bottom, you look at the iPad, took 80 days. And the app Pokemon Go took just 19, less than a month to reach 50 million global users. This move fast, break things. This is part of the business model for tech companies. They want to get their product or their app or their platform up to scale so that they can make a profit and make money off of whatever their product is. But what we've seen is that this can cause a lot of families to feel a sense of whiplash or overwhelming when it comes to trying to manage tech in a home, because it seems like you just figured out one app or one platform or one device, and then there's something new that comes out as soon as you have figured out the last one. And another reason that tech can feel overwhelming to manage is that a lot of parents didn't grow up with the devices or platforms that kids have today. And so you'll see like the, original iPod or a flip phone, a pager as well, or some other devices here that you might recognize. One example that I like to use, and this happened with my nephews who are 15 and 13, they have Nintendo Switch, but I grew up with a Nintendo DS. And so when they hand me a Switch, I don't know how to use it. I don't know what the settings are. Like, I don't know the first thing about it. So it'd also be hard for me to parent around a Nintendo Switch. Like, what parental controls are available? What other settings can I use on this device? So just an example of, we didn't grow up with some of these devices, and so it's going to be hard to parent around them as well. This graph I like to show because it shows just how quickly consumption has accelerated. The top of it is getting into 100% of US households. So if you look at the left side of the screen, if you look at the telephone, the automobile, electricity, those over time, over decades, got up to 100% of US households. Again, families had time to adjust and figure out how these things fit within their family. If you go to the right side of the screen, the microwave, VCR, computer, cell phone, internet, those got up to, looks about, 90% of US households much more quickly. So it just shows how much quicker and faster this industry is moving. Another reason why it can feel hard to keep up is that with new social media platforms is that they look so different from what we might originally think of as social media. Social media started as Friendster, Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, and we now have platforms where, Snapchat, like photos and text disappear after 10 seconds, or, I think every social media platform has some form of short form content now. So the design of the platforms have just changed so much over the last few decades. And one important thing that I really like to know on this slide is that, especially that we're talking about early childhood tonight, is that here at the center, we take a broad view of social media. And so that includes platforms like YouTube and Roblox. YouTube and Roblox have algorithms, they have chat features, and they have user-generated content. So even though it might be easy to think of social media as a teenager issue, we actually need to acknowledge that social media use starts in early childhood and children younger and younger are getting on these platforms. Another reason why media can feel hard to manage is that there's so much more content out there. This is even a little data. This is from 2019, where 500 hours of video were uploaded to YouTube every minute worldwide. And if you think that's pre-pandemic, where everyone was pushed online, influencers, content creators really blew up around that time. And so there's just so much content out there, and it can be really hard to try to monitor and figure out what's good content and what's not. But we will go into content today, so just hold on there. And at the same time of everything I've said, raising young children has become even more difficult. We've met so many families with young children who juggle multiple jobs or barely feel like they have the time to play with their kids. And all the while, this graph here shows that prices for childcare have increased faster and far more than other essential expenses like housing, transportation, and groceries. So, with it being especially expensive to put kids in childcare, for those who struggle to meet ends meet and can't put their child in childcare, they depend on neighbors, grandparents, community, or what I like to call a village for support. But if they don't have those supports in place, they're going to use screens for help. And that's why at the AAP, we talk about how screen time doesn't occur in a vacuum. It's not just about how many hours or minutes the child is spending on the screen. Children develop within these circles of care, which includes caregivers to larger systems and structures. And when these systems are built to like health promoting and created to meet families' needs, children can thrive. But when these systems lack adequate investment, caregivers and children are likely to experience adverse impacts on their well-being. So we have to think about factors like whether families can afford childcare, what does the school's phone policy look like around, or policy around technology? What is the parents' work's parental leave policies? What does that look like? Does the school offer after-school programs? If they don't have access to these, screens will inevitably fill that space. And therefore, if we want healthier screen use, we will need other supports instead of putting it on the family as an individual responsibility. And I do want to go over some kind of high level what the research is saying around screen time and child development. And in terms of the overall big picture, around this, most of the research remains cross-sectional. And what this means is that researchers are looking at children or surveying children and parents at one specific time. There's not a whole lot of research out there that's looking long-term or looking at child development over time. So there are some out there. And so there are some longitudinal and bigger studies, and we've cited a few here. And what we have found that when children are spending more time on screens, we're seeing impacts like slower language development. Even when TVs are on in the background, it can be a distractor. We're seeing more externalizing behaviors like hitting or not following directions. We see this especially in boys. There's a good body of evidence around when kids spend more time on screens, there's poorer sleep quality. We see more sedentary time, higher risk of nearsightedness, slower development of cognitive skills or fine motor skills. We're seeing that children are having more difficulty calming down when mobile devices or technology is used to soothe those big feelings that they feel, especially in early childhood. And we also see that higher screen use in families who experience stress or fewer economic resources. And a caveat about this research is that, again, it's cross-sectional, so it could miss out on a lot of different factors that are impacting the family. We have a good evidence base around early childhood that when screens are used in excess, it can displace other important learning opportunities. But we also need more research about the content that kids are watching and the context in which they are watching. And so With all that said, what we want to do at the center and here tonight is to empower you all to make a few small changes that fit your family values. It doesn't have to be this big change. It can be maybe a few small ones or just one small change that you want to take back to your family. And we hope to normalize this conversation about technology and media so that way you can have conversations with other parents or professionals and that you feel less guilt around this topic. We want parents to be less critical of themselves, but maybe more critical of the tech companies that create and are designing products in ways that make a profit off of ours and our children's time and attention. And again, we want to normalize that there is not one right way to do this. So hopefully you can take a few things away from this presentation that you'll want to try with your family. And we have created our early childhood development and screen time toolkit to help you all. This toolkit offers a lot of resources for parents and professionals as well. Lots of tip sheets and some videos. I will be going into each component of the toolkit tonight, so feel free to scan the QR code if you can or you'd like to. I will be sharing the link with Melanie, so you guys will have access to this once the presentation's over as well, and it's always freely available on our website. And at the center, we have created this 5 C's of healthy media use. You'll see the 5 C's of media use in early childhood on the screen here. And this is a way for clinicians, parents, and other people who work with youth to, instead of thinking of, how much screen time, what are the hours or the minutes that children are spending on the screen, this is, evidence-based ways of thinking of other ways to think about when children are on screen. So when it comes to screen use, we need to think about who is the child and how do they react to media. In content, we have to think about what is the child engaging with and what's worth their attention. The next C, calm, is about how does your child calm when they're experiencing strong emotions or they need to calm their bodies or go to sleep. Crowding out, our next C, is all about displacement. So what is media getting in the way of? We'll go into more of that later. And then lastly, communication is how can we talk about media to raise a smart and responsible child? And so for the rest of the presentation, I'll be going into each of these C's, discussing the research behind each one and the early childhood toolkit component that aligns with that C that you can use to support you and your family. Awesome. So our first C is child, and this is where we consider who the child is, how they react to media. We know that each child is unique based on how fussy they get with changes to their routine or how easily they self-soothe. And we want to encourage parents to try to be aware of their child's emotional and learning capabilities so they're aware of how they may react to certain types of media. And so we know that every child's wired differently. They have their own temperament, have their own unique strengths and challenges. And, some may go 0 to 60 really fast. And others may, be more calm and adapt more easily. And their temperament and all this, it shapes how kids develop relationships with media. So if we look at infants, we can think about some individual differences, like does the infant get fussy with changes to the routine, or how easily do they self-soothe? For toddlers and preschoolers, this is a age where you can really start to see differences in personalities. Some are more impulsive or curious, while others are more shy and slow to warm up. And additionally, some toddlers are, really drawn and obsessed with media and demand it frequently, where others have an easier time letting it go. And so it's important, especially if you have multiple kids, they may respond differently to media. And so it's important to be aware of the differences in that. And so all of these are important because as parents, we need to know how our child reacts to media so we can help them build those healthy boundaries around media as well. Some questions I like to give parents to maybe start thinking about this a little bit more are questions like, what does my child like or dislike about media? What types of media do they gravitate towards? When your child has free play on a tablet or a phone, what do they tend to gravitate towards? Do they seem overstimulated after using technology? How do transitions go from screen use to non-screen activities? And then overall, just how does media affect them? So those are some good questions that you can reflect on to help kind of think about how your child reacts to media. Our next C is calm. And we want to address this C because we know that children learn so much in early childhood about how to identify and manage their emotions. So as you can see in the red circles here, there are two times in childhood where there's lots of emotional growth. This is where kids are relying less on caregivers and parents to manage their emotions, and there's much more growth in how they're trying to manage it themselves. So these are really important windows for children to be learning the distress and the friction that comes from daily life. And that if we're distracting from those moments of distress or displacing a learning moment with screens, kids may not grow as much emotionally. And what we've seen in the research is that infants who have a more difficult temperament or problems regulating their emotions often watch more TV. Toddlers with social and emotional delays are more likely to be given phones, tablets, or other devices to help calm down their emotions, or even during daily routines like car rides or mealtime. And also that giving a child a device to help calm down is linked with worse emotional reactivity and more problematic habits over time. And so what we're seeing is this pattern of these big feelings in kids is leading to more screen use, and more screen use is actually making those big feelings harder to manage. And I want to say that it's okay if you do turn to screens occasionally to help your child. Parenting is difficult, and sometimes that relief is just so needed. But at the same time, we want you to understand the trade-offs and the alternatives that are going to help build emotional resilience in your children. And I always like to say screens can, in fact, be a part of the child's regulation toolkit, but it cannot be the only tool in the toolkit. And so, some ways that we can help our children is by remembering that you're the expert on your child. Think about some strategies that you know that will help calm them down. Reminding yourself that screens can help them calm quickly, but the real growth and comfort comes from when parents are able to label the emotion, talk, listen to their child, and practice calming strategies together. It can be as simple as holding your child rocking, singing, or snuggling to help them calm down. And we always want to encourage skills before screens. And so, some other calming strategies that I like to give are like deep breathing, taking a break for a quiet reflection. You can remove the child from whatever the situation is. There's also activities like sensory play, like fidget toys. I always enjoyed like the glitter bottles. If they're really into arts and crafts can be an option, mindful mantras, exploring nature, and just so many more. So it's okay if you've used screens as a calming tool, but we want to encourage you to try to have other strategies in your toolbox that you think may work for your child. And we've created this infographic in our early childhood development and screen time toolkit to explain the cycle that happens when tech is being used to help calm children's emotions. So you'll start in the middle here with the child upset, frustrated, or bored. And when they're given a device, they do calm down due to being distracted, but they're not actually handling that emotion that they were feeling. And so, with repetition and over time, they will expect the screen when they're upset, and they're developing fewer self-regulation skills in those moments as well. And if you go back to a child's upset, frustrated, or bored, and the parent is able to step in, label that emotion, help them calm their bodies, or maybe move to a different activity with repetition and over time, the child learns to self regulate. They react to stress more slowly, they recover quickly, and they're able to manage their feelings. And so, this is just a way that we've created this image to explain that cycle that's happening. And we've also worked with Oakland County Great Start Collaborative last year, who also made their own version of this, maybe a little bit more friendly too. I like this one a lot. And so, just the same cycle that happens when a child is experiencing a stressor and they're given a device to calm down. They do get calm because of the distraction, but they're not learning to solve the problem and they're unsure how to calm without a device. And I really like this one because it points out that the parent misses the chance to help the child cope. Where if you look at on the flip side, if a stressor happens, parent steps in, labels the emotion, solves the problem, over time, that child remembers how to calm and identify their emotions and is able to solve that problem. And the parent learns how the child copes best. And so all of these are available on our website, free to download and print as well if you like any of these or they resonate with you. And we have also heard that transitioning from screens to non-screen activities can be difficult to manage. So I wanted to provide some tips to help with that as well. Some tips could be like offering fun offline alternatives that you know your child enjoys. We encourage parents to turn off autoplay if they're using a platform that has autoplay designed into it. Like YouTube would be an example of that. You can set your child's screen use at predictable times of the day, like Saturday morning or after school. This helps them not ask for it outside of those times. Or if they do, you can reiterate that screen use only happens during those specific times. Or you can create a code word or a phrase with your child to help your child know when it's time to get off the device. And just know that if and when tantrums do occur during times of transition, it's not a parenting fail. Tech is designed to make it hard for kids and even adults to put the device down. So if tantrums do occur, try to redirect any physical aggression by letting them go outside or having a cozy space for them to calm their bodies. And most importantly, check in on yourself. Take a moment for yourself if needed. That way, you can help your child learn how to calm their emotions and help them develop those coping skills. You are your child's biggest influencer, so it's important to be mindful of your own mental health. We have this transition tip sheet as well. Same information I just went over, but again, free to download and access if you'd like to like put it on your fridge or have handy for yourself if you'd like to read it over or check out any of the resources linked on here. And our next C is crowding out. So crowding out is all about displacement and what technology is displacing or getting in the way of, whether that's on a TV screen, a tablet, or even a parent's phone. So we want to think about how when media is in use, other things aren't happening, like parent and child connection, language exposure, singing, reading, physical activity, and lots more. So especially if media use is long, this can crowd out other developmentally appropriate activities in early childhood. And we want to think about what day-to-day priorities we have as families so we can think about actively preventing screens from crowding out these important times. And what we've seen is that the research around displacement or crowding out shows that when young children use more screens, they move their body less, they talk less, and they're actually talked to less, meaning that there's less parent and child conversation, and kids are hearing fewer words when the screen is on. There's also less shared book reading, which can just reduce opportunities for kids to build a love for reading and those early literacy skills. And there's so much research around reading together in early childhood. It's just so good for child development and brain development. And finally, there is less sleep, which is just so crucial for overall health in young children. And so, some practical tips if we're trying to set boundaries around screen time, healthy boundaries around screen time, are creating some screen-free zones. This could be, no screens in the kitchen or living room or in the bedrooms, especially so it's not impacting sleep. You can be available for alternative activities that your child enjoys, like reading together, or you can put devices away in total during certain times of the day, or use device settings like I always use do not disturb or those focus modes. That way I'm just not distracted and enticed to get on my phone. Parents can also make screen or tech use predictable times of the day. This can help, like I said, just prevent kids from asking it outside of those times. And inevitably, when screen time does decrease, you'll need to fill that time with offline activities. And so we want to encourage activities like reading, storytelling, maybe looking at some old photo albums. You could listen to some music together or even an audiobook. Or you could attend your local library or a community center. And it might seem a little silly, but we also encourage families to make a list of their favorite non-tech offline activities that they like to do. That way, when you aren't using screens and are in need of an alternative activity, you have it easily accessible. You can even like put these on the fridge. That way, the whole family can add or think about other activities they would want to do. And we have a tip sheet that does help with this. And so this reboot your family's tech life. This is a three-step process to reevaluate your family's tech and media use when it feels like it's out of control or it's overwhelming or it's getting in the way of other things you want to do with your family. And so the first step would be to take an inventory. What media is in your home? How are you using it? When are you using it? Step two would be to make a list of non-tech alternatives like I just talked about. And then step three, most important, make a plan, but go easy on yourself. Plan A might not go perfectly or how you planned it to, and a-okay to pivot to plan B and see how that goes. And your plan might need to change over time as the kids grow as well. And so this is the front of the tip sheet here. And then on the back, we have examples of non-tech activities. These are from like Healthy Children, 0 to 3. And we've even left a space for you to add your own activities. So just a good one to have if you just kind of need an idea of some offline activities. So our next C is content. And this is about understanding the type of content our child's engaging with. Not all media is created equal, and high quality content is important for helping young children learn and not have developmental consequences of their media use. And so, one important concept is that children under 18 months don't learn from screens like they do from human interactions. And this is why at the AAP, we state to limit the amount of screen use in under 18 months because they're not going to benefit from it. And if screen use becomes prolonged, that's when it can lead to adverse impacts. Once kids hit age 2 or 3, studies have shown that shows like Sesame Street, Blue's Clues, Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood do have a measurable and positive impact on learning and behavior. But the difference with these companies is that they hire psychologists, child development specialists for their teams when they're producing or creating a product. They also test whether children actually learn from their product, and they prioritize children in the design of their product and don't just try to make money off of children's time and attention. Another platform that is super popular with young children is YouTube. And so this is some research that came out from the Pew Research Center. And what this is basically showing is that, and some data that I like to point out is that it shows 62% of kids under 2 are watching YouTube, and that 35% of kids under 2 are watching YouTube daily. And this is so important to note because YouTube was not created or designed with the intended audience of a 2-year-old. And we have research out there that shows us what YouTube does to the developing child. This study is from Dr. Jenny Rodesky and her lab here at the University of Michigan. They found that kids were watching YouTube on average 1 hour a day or more, and that the content that's on YouTube that's labeled for kids is highly variable. There were lots of advertisements, most were not educational, most had commercialism, and some had violence, stereotypes, and other negative themes. So these are some screenshots from the study where they found lots of what we call like wish fulfillment content, where kids just love to watch along and watch vicariously, like vicariously experience someone eating candy or playing with toys that they enjoy. But this content is not educational, but it is more likely to trend and get attention. Another type of content that's important to make note of are mobile games that are like in the App Store. There are thousands of apps that are made for kids on the App Store, but what we've seen is studies have shown that the majority of apps that call themselves or label themselves as educational are actually low quality. They contain advertisements and in-game purchases. They have weak learning goals for the user, and they offer repetitive designs where the child doesn't get to use their imagination in the game. We also see that mobile devices are harder for parents to interact or co-play along with their child. And so when they're playing a game on a phone or a tablet, that's going to be harder to see what they're doing and play with them versus if it was on a bigger screen or a non-digital toy like puzzles, stuffed animals, or blocks. And I wanted to include this slide because I think it's really important to note is that tech companies they put design in their platforms that is made to keep us on there longer. And so there's designs like autoplay. If we've been on YouTube, autoplay is a big one that once the video is over, then in 10 seconds the next one comes on. There's in a lot of kids games, there's daily rewards, badges, or like tokens that kids can get for coming back each day and playing the game each day. There's lots of notifications. There's recommendation feeds, manufactured or like fake drama, trending topics, or clickbait images. And some that we see in social media is like the infinite scroll, if we think of like Instagram, TikTok, or like just like that endless content. So I have some examples, some images on the screen here. So this would be an example of like daily rewards or badges. If they come back each day, they get claws, some money, gold, a torch when they come back to the app each day. This is an example of like notifications that a child will get. And so this is miraculous, telling the user, Paris is in danger, get your claws out and help our heroes. It can be really enticing for a kid when they see that on whatever device they're using to go back into the app and continue playing. This is the recommendation feed. This is from YouTube. And so it can just be really easy for kids to then just click the next video that they find interesting. This is just an example of like the swipe up, the endless scroll. And I wanted to point out even Instagram, these little notifications that you get of like comments, likes, or messages. Those are designed to keep you on there longer and engaging with the content that is online. And so just important to know and be aware of these design tricks that are embedded into platforms for children, and try not to use platforms that have these designs, or talk to your children about them so that they're aware of them. And so some recommendations that we have is, if you are using YouTube, we always encourage parents to make a playlist of videos that they have watched, that they have vetted themselves. And that way the child can just watch the videos that are on the playlist, and they're not kind of getting lost in the recommendation feed or what's being pushed to them. Um, we didn't talk about shorts today, but short form videos is fairly new, and research is still coming on short form content as well. But we um, just say in early childhood, avoid shorts. If you're gonna like watch any content, have it be longer form. So there's a plot, children are learning something from that. We want to encourage YouTube Kids, where there's just more like kid-friendly content than there is on the YouTube general platform. Or you can try alternate apps where videos are all reviewed first. Sensical is one of those. Not many people know about the app Sensical, but this is all the videos are reviewed before they're put on this platform. And that if your child does have a tablet or phone, try to have some consistent boundaries around when they can access it. Use some tools like timers, setting downtime, or using download and purchase restrictions. And if they are on a tablet or a phone, we always encourage PBS Kids and Sesame Street apps. There's some of those out there as well. And I always like to encourage parents, because I always love watching a show that I watched when I was little. So think about what content you grew up with. Maybe get a little nostalgia. Like I loved Blue's Clues and Backyardigans. Those were some of my favorites. So you could think about what shows you really enjoyed watching as a child, and watch those with your child. And we did create a content stoplight in our toolkit to help parents know like what's good, what's kind of okay, and what's not good. And so we have the bottom would be like the green, the good stuff. Like if you're watching or using screens or watching media, like this is the educational high quality stuff. So Sesame Street, PBS Kids, streaming platforms with shows that are made with care. And when we say made with care, those are it's media creators, when they follow like child-centered design, they work with child development experts and families to make sure their products support child well-being. And also just having screen use be a source of connection, so you can always FaceTime with friends and family, or you can listen to music and songs that let you sing and dance along with your child. The middle section, this yellow section, or the occasional treat, I like to think of this as like candy. It's good like once a week, but it's not going to be good every single day. And so this is content that's, fast paced with lots of bells and whistles, a lot of product focused content. There's a lot of like toy unboxing kid influencers out there. Video games and VR, or any apps that contain heavy advertising or in-game purchases. And then this stop avoid section would be anything, any sort of content that's like scary, violent, rude, aggressive, or destructive, any AI generated content, mature videos and movies, or highly sensationalized content. I mentioned short form videos and AI chatbots. Those would be the stuff in the avoid that content. And so again, this is available on our early childhood toolkit if you'd like to reference this in the future. All right. So our next C is communication. And we always want to talk about, when it comes to communication, we want to talk about screens as being a source of connection versus disconnection. And so, the more kids are talked to and the more they have opportunities for that back and forth communication, is how they build healthy relationships. And so what we know is that video chatting with loved ones can in fact help build stronger connections, especially with distant family members. I'm always FaceTiming with my best friend's 1.5-year old and like making hand motions and faces into the camera, and he loves it. You can also co-view or watching shows together that can help bring connection between child and caregiver, along with listening, dancing to music. All these activities help the parent understand how their child reacts to media, and these type of activities together can enhance youth learning and increase closeness. But there are sources of disconnection. There's what researchers have called technoference, which we'll get into next, or where a source of disconnection can be, and I'm sure we've all seen this of, where everyone's at home on their own device and using their own device in their own way. And so we just want to think about how technology can be more of a connector and less of a disconnector. And this video here is from Sesame Workshop, and it's where they're FaceTiming with grandparents just to, again, show that how screens can be a source of connection. And so technoference is this term that was coined by researchers, and what it refers to is when a parent is on their phone and they're distracted and they're not engaging with their child. And so it's that interruption in connection that happens. And there has been research around this disconnection that happens. And what they've seen is that when parents' attention is in the phone, there's less parent and child conversations, there's less responsiveness, less verbal and nonverbal interactions, less sensitivity in child learning, less thinking or mentalizing about each other, and more difficulty with that repair and coming back together. We also see an increase in conflict or externalizing behaviors in children. And so it's just important to note and be aware of how we're using the devices and making sure it's not breaking that connection that we're having with our children. This graph on the right here, this is from a study where parents and their preschool age child went into a study and they did a word learning test. So the parent was teaching the child a new word. And for half of the parents, they were texted during the session. So they all had their phones on them, but for half of them, they were texted, they pulled out their phone, quickly responded, and then put it back. And what you'll see is those children whose parents were texted during the session and the teaching of the word was interrupted, 50% of the children learned that word. Whereas if you look at this green bar, this represents the children whose parents were not texted and that connection was not interrupted. And that's, about 63% of those children were able to learn the word at the end of the activity. And so this graph, I just like to show it because it shows that even a very, very brief interruption in that connection can have adverse outcomes. Let's see. So, and as I've talked about, media habits start in early childhood, and as parents, our tech use habits, they set the tone for our children. We model how often, when, and why screens are used. So it's important to talk about healthy tech use and what media use looks like from an early age. This helps your children build digital literacy. It can also help you identify when your child is struggling. And so we want to encourage parents to think about when they're using a device around their kids, think about why you're using it. You can even tell your child why you're using it. If you're getting out your phone, say, I'm texting grandma for this, or I'm texting so-and-so for that. And again, every family looks different, and there's so many ways to do this right. So it's normal to feel stressed out about this topic. So it's okay to take a deep breath and be open-minded. Ask yourself questions. Be reflective of your own media use. And like I said in the beginning of the presentation, try to make one small change if you can, and always take care of yourself. And we do have this tip sheet if you'd like just a little more tips or a reminder around parent screen time boundaries. And just if you're not knowing where to start, we have multiple tips here that you can go through and pick which one works best for you. Again, free to download and access on our website. And we also have tip sheets on the importance of socializing at meals and just how that's such a time for like language development and a source of connection. And then if you're not sure how to go about co-viewing and joint media engagement with your child, we have this tip sheet as well that you can just read through to kind of get a jump start on that. Awesome. So to wrap up, I want to give just some high level takeaway messages that I hope you all can take away from today's presentation. I've said this multiple times, and I really want to mention this is that there's so many ways to do this right. Your neighbor might be doing it a different way, or sibling, or cousin, or someone else you may know, but that doesn't mean that that strategy will fit for your family. Every family and child is unique, and so you have to find what fits best for your family. Um, if we can take anything away, is that children don't need screens under age 2. If you do choose to introduce media under that age, just make sure to keep a um, high quality educational shows and just encourage and make sure like screens are having a time and a place. We know that screens can help keep kids calm and occupied during stressful moments like going to the doctors or during travel, but it shouldn't be a regular calming tool. Like I said, it can be in the regulation toolkit, but it can't be the only tool in the toolkit. Young children learn best from offline activities, especially in early childhood, when they can use their hands and their bodies, touch people's faces and play with blocks and puzzles and explore their world. They're going to learn so much more from that versus a screen. It's also important to know that child and parent screen time boundaries help us stay available for moments of connection, and try to co-watch shows as much as you can as a family. And then just try to model healthy screen use behaviors so that your child grows up seeing those healthy behaviors. And if you're overwhelmed and don't know where to start, I always say keep it simple. Think about what boundaries you have for your family around media and tech use. What relationship do you want to have with your child, or what relationship do you want your child to have with technology and media? And then what offline activities do you like doing, or your child likes doing, or you like doing together? Maybe just think of like one, two, or all three of these, and that way you can just start simple and build up from there. Again, it can be one small habit or strategy that you try. It doesn't have to be all at once. And I do have lots of resources that I want to go over with you guys. And so there's lots of books out there. And so this first one and the fourth one, so First Phone and Growing Up in Public, I did confirm with Melanie, is available at the library. And then some of these Behind Their Screens, The Emotional Lives of Teenagers, those are more geared towards older kids. So if you have older kids, you can chat with Melanie to see if you can access those. I also wanted to mention a few others I had on my shelf here. So Baby Unplugged by Sophie Brickman is, I think, more early childhood focused. And then Dr. Becky Kennedy has Good Inside, and that's another good one to read as well. So lots of books. I'm a big reader, and so I always love reading books. And if I find more, I can always pass them over to Melanie as well. We have our website, the Center of Excellence, where we just have so much information about programs or webinars that we have. We have a Q&A portal where you can submit any question you have. And it actually gets sent to me or my colleague over at the University of Wisconsin. And what we do is we look at all the research around that specific question you asked. And we look at all the resources around there and we form a response, particularly for you. We send it to you back via email in about 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how big the question is. We also post it on our website. We have over 100 questions posted on our website, all sorts of things of like screen time guidelines for all different ages of kids, school phone policy questions. And so just so much on there. So if you are wanting more resources or information, the portal is a great thing to check out. Lots of other tools and resources, multimedia resources. If you want to get in touch with us, we have some contact information or a monthly newsletter. I went through the 5 Cs for infants and toddlers and preschoolers, but we also have this for school age children, young teens, and older teens. So if you have children that are older, these are still available for you on our website, and they are available in multiple languages. If there's another language you don't find on there, please contact us or contact me and let me know. We are working on getting more languages available. And this is a resource I love for early childhood. These are activity cards for children 10 and younger, and these are free to print out and you can cut them out. And they're activities to help children build digital literacy. those digital literacy skills. And it can also be a way for like you as parents to start those conversations. Maybe you even learn something from those activities as well. So again, these are just a few examples of like talking about chat etiquette or planning a family movie night or thinking about, do I post this or do I not post this? How we manage our emotions or our favorite non-tech like alternative activities. So lots of good like conversation starters for families with young kids to use. We also have conversation starters for the teens as well. So if you have older kids, just the same thing. If you're unsure where to start this conversation, we have them on our website, and we also have these really pretty cards. I don't know if they're available for purchase. But I think you can see them on the website. And so just some really great conversation starters if you don't know where to get that convo started. We also have a glossary of digital media platforms. This is one of my favorites. We heard from a lot of families that when their children are on platforms, they don't know what parental controls are available or what other settings and tools that they can use to help, keep content, like bad content from coming across their screen or like unwanted contact from strangers. And so we have like a lot of popular digital media platforms or social media platforms, and we've gone through and listed there's so many more settings than what are included on the screen here of settings and tools that are available for the parent to use, or if it's like a teenager, the teen to use as well. So just lots of good information there if you're unsure of like what a platform is and what's available to you. I mentioned our Q&A portal. We also have it searchable by age, and again, it includes all of our questions. We have our AAP Family Media Plan. This just helps families set media priorities and create a plan that's adaptable over time. The AAP Family Media Plan, you can go in, pick out what priorities and boundaries you have around screen time. Every person in the family gets a spot and is included. And then you can print it out, put it on the fridge. And once you're kind of realizing that this plan needs to change or it needs to adapt, you can go back in to the same one and adapt it and change it. We also have a family tip sheet on building healthy digital habits. And we also have videos for youth. These are geared towards the teens, and these videos are actually created by some of our teens themselves who are on our youth panel. Some other resources just to mention, if you're ever looking for more, Healthy Children is great. 0 to 3, NAEYC, or Common Sense is a great one as well. They have Common Sense has Early Childhood Toolkit. And if you're ever curious whether a show or a movie or a game or a platform is like, if you ever want to like look at reviews of that specific platform or whatever it may be, a book, they have books and movies too, or podcasts, they do reviews on Common Sense. And so you can go see, they're very detailed. And so you can go kind of vet the platform or whatever it is out before you allow your child to use it. See, and that is all I have today. So thank you so much for listening. I have my contact information here on the screen, and you can always get it from Melanie if you're wanting to reach out to me or the Center of Excellence, but I appreciate all of your time and attention. There is some time for Q&A, so if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer and stick around and answer your guys' questions. So thank you so much for listening tonight.